Well, what a story we have to talk about today because, of course, it is Friday and the Wrestling Observer newsletter has just dropped. And again, we can only say apparently maybe, but according to that thing, when we go back to WrestleMania 39, well, there's a lot we actually need to talk about. Here's the deal. Dave Meltzer has indeed written that one of the reasons that Cody Rhodes did not win the World Championship at WrestleMania 39, which was so out of control and sent so many people crazy, when I did my ups and downs for What Culture Wrestling, check them out right now and subscribe, we almost had a riot and I almost got arrested, is because Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman sat down at some point with Paul Levesque and then Vince McMahon and said, hey man, we don't think this is the year to do it. We should hold off for another 12 months because Roman, he can do more as the champion. And if you take the belt off him now, well, we're not going to be able to do that. And of course, as soon as the internet read this, they've gone totally nuts. Now, I kind of fall down on both sides of the fences here, and you'll be saying, fine, man, you always do that. I'm like, well, I can't help the way I feel. I must follow my tum-tum. So let's tap into the one that most people are talking about, which is, of course, why did we do this? It was the worst thing ever. It was a terrible idea, and they didn't like the finish to WrestleMania 39. I totally understand that. And as I said, throughout the 12-month period, you can see me talking about this, what we're doing on videos, is that we hadn't got to WrestleMania 40, and we hadn't finally coronated Cody, I would have totally agreed with you. But when I do go back through the past year, I think the main thing that sticks out for me is Jey Uso. Now, I'm not saying we wouldn't have been able to have done this with Jey Uso anyway. I'm not 100% sure Roman needed the championship to do this, but I can only work with the evidence that I do have and the things that did happen. And Reigns did keep hold of that title. And one of the best things is now we are in April 2024, May 2024, and Jey Uso, as his nickname states, is well, he's not a main event guy, really. Well, I guess he's kind of main eventing Backlash, sort of, but not really. But he's a single star. And if you would tell me that back in like 2014, 2015, when the Usos were coming to the ring with Tamina, there is nobody meaner, I never would have believed you. So, when you actually break it all down, the stories we did tell, you probably could have done this without the WWE title. But again, we go with the facts that we do have. We did do it with the WWE title. So I kind of find it interesting that Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman would have thought this. Maybe they were playing the long game and maybe they were sort of staring into the future. Now, of course, the worrying part of all of this is that at one stage back in January, it was going to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns and Cody would not have gotten his shot. And I tell you right now, if we had gone through WrestleMania 40 without that, I've already said it, I'll say it again, I would have been on your side. 1 year is a debate, which is what we're having now, but 2 years then becomes, what are we doing now? Cody is quite clearly the guy. No matter what happens now, some people already don't like his championship reign, which is ridiculous because it's only just begun, but you had to give it a go, right? We had to throw it on the wall and see what was going to stick. But thankfully, we have got there, which actually ties into two other points I wanted to chat about. Because one, Roman Reigns doing this back at WrestleMania 39 is pretty much the reason he didn't take on The Rock at WrestleMania 40. Because that's what The Rock came back to do. We all know about the pivot and them changing plans. So if Cody had actually won at WrestleMania 39, then Roman would have been open at WrestleMania 40. Like, even if the plan was to do Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes Part 2 with Cody as the champion, and even if Roman was meant to win that one, when The Rock swans back into town, you just know that Roman would have gone, no, I'm happy to do that instead. And I don't think anybody would have minded not seeing that match again. In fact, most people I talk to don't like it when we have the same main event for WrestleMania back to back, because it kind of takes away some of the magic. So if you really want to get mad at Roman Reigns, he shot himself in the foot there. But then the other piece of information that came out, which I suppose ties in because I sort of pushed these two WrestleManias together now, is that apparently, allegedly, I'll say all these words again, there was a pitch, maybe from The Rock, maybe from somebody else, that they were going to do Roman Reigns versus The Rock. The Rock was going to win the championship. But don't forget, Roman Reigns was going to held for 1,106 days. That was gibberish. 1316. Totally crazy in my old age. Before he would relinquish the title before going back to Hollywood. And then when he did return, he called himself the People's Champion because he won the championship. And of course, he's a man of the people. Now, that is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. I think what The Rock did when he came back was absolutely brilliant. It was backed up by ratings, merchandise, and everything like that. But in no way should Roman Reigns' massive championship run be beating like someone like The Rock. Because The Rock could come back, right, and do 10 matches. And he could face Roman Reigns, he could face Cody Rhodes, he could face Tozawa, he could face Otis, he could face Chad Gable, he could face Maxine Dupree. And even if he lost all of those matches, he'd still be The Rock, right? He could come back in 10 days' time, 10 weeks' time, whatever it may be, cut a promo, and everyone would be like, oh my gosh, Dwayne Johnson. He's back again because he has transcended wrestling, essentially. I've told you this before as well. My mum still doesn't realise The Rock and Dwayne Johnson are the same person. She remembers The Rock that I used to watch when I was a kid growing up on wrestling, but now she thinks Dwayne Johnson is just an actor. Now, I'm sure I've corrected her a few times and she does actually know, but again, it escapes her brain. So it doesn't matter what he does in wrestling anymore, right? He's always going to sit up there, whereas everybody else sits here, again, because of his stardom. That would have been the worst thing. That would be absolutely worse than Roman Reigns winning at WrestleMania 39, because you would have had this, 2, 3, 4 years worth worth of story that all of a sudden you game to The Rock somebody who may come back, but at the same time he may not come back. And again, that was something other people were talking about too. The idea at the moment is that Cody Rhodes doesn't have any major plans until The Rock and Roman Reigns are back into play. I mean, that kind of seems like a strange thing to say to me. I mean, look, as a first title defense, I think AJ Styles is fine. There's no one that really else stands out to me. And also, this can just give Cody a win at Backlash, which is going down tomorrow. Make sure you check out my predictions that went up the other day. And for nerds and geeks like me, and probably you, seeing Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles go at it is pretty cool. I watched the pre-show, whatever we call it, the press conference, pre-press conference for Backlash, and Cody Rhodes even said on stage to AJ Styles, "Oh, used to be the leader of the Bullet Club," so we're absolutely leaning in that way. Now, of course, Cody will win. It would be ridiculous otherwise. And then when we do start to head to which other events we do have, you can just line up the opponents. I don't think you have to go straight in with a Gunther. Obviously, Roman and The Rock aren't going to be back in A. And look, me talking to you now, I can't think of anyone that does stand out that Cody could have a fight. But I have no problem him going through AJ Styles, him going through somebody else, him going through something else, when all of a sudden we're reaching SummerSlam and we can pull the trigger on something as long as we're stacking the deck in other areas. Because in terms of Cody, I'd take another Roman Reigns match if it's done right. Absolutely, The Rock at next year's WrestleMania. There's CM Punk. Obviously, there's Gunther, and these two have started to talk about it, so I presume we are doing that at SummerSlam. You could do something with Drew McIntyre. Seth Rollins is still there. And I understand these are people that are on different brands, but after that draft, I don't think WWE cares about the brand split at all anymore. I mean, we are going to have designated homes for people, but if the story calls for it, you can just tell everyone is going to jump all over the place. But it's an interesting time. Absolutely, it's an interesting time in wrestling right now, because I think we weren't expecting as much of a lull as maybe we got post-WrestleMania. And I bet when we do watch Backlash tomorrow, the fans are going to be crazy. The French fans will be like, man, you've got to come back here. When you have that kind of energy and you have that kind of atmosphere, even though there's only 5 or 6 matches, and maybe there should have been an Intercontinental Championship match in there as well, and a United States Championship match on there too. I do get some people rolling their eyes at it, but we'll judge it after the fact. But I don't mind Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman going into business for themselves, if we want to call it that way, because I do think the end result did make Cody a bigger star, which is one of the things that was quoted here too. They did think it would do that, and it massively helped Jey Uso. Like, I was lucky enough to go to that Money in Bank at the O2 Arena, and one of the reasons it was so good is because Roman hadn't been pinned in so long. And of course, if we do reverse the clock back a few months and Cody pins him, maybe that match loses some of its allure, because when Jey Uso did get that 3 count, that place blew up. And I would go as far to say is that is one of the moments when people started to accept this idea. Oh my gosh, Jey Uso can be a main event babyface. He's absolutely wonderful. And I know that you then move on to the SummerSlam match, the Tribal Chief Hardcore Extravaganza, whatever it was called. It definitely wasn't called that, but it should have done. Yes, it was a little bit of a disappointment, but I still think Jey Uso is going to find his role, even if it's being the guy that defeats Logan Paul for his champ, right? I think that's perfectly fine. He can be an upper tier singles guy, and I still think that's absolutely awesome. I think he's going to have a ton of longevity too. And of course, eventually, he will probably reunite with Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso to take on the brand new bloodline. So I think when we took the title off Roman was the right thing to do. I think Cody's doing a great job. I think it's only going to get better. And I also think if The Rock can become the champion and he would have beaten Roman Reigns, that would have been something that I personally would have enjoyed from a content point of view, because we could have talked about that forever. But in terms of a storyline point of view, I think it would have been really silly. And I was listening to Wrestling Observer Radio the other day, because I'm a massive geek. I like to listen to everything. Dave Meltzer kind of insinuated too that there was some back and forth behind the scenes. And look, we have to take everything with a pinch of salt. We don't know. We're not there. That maybe one of the reasons Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble is because other people had heard about what The Rock's plans were. And they're like, excuse me, I've got a 2-year story I'm trying to pay off here. Or again, a 4-year story if we bring the Tribal Chief into it. And we didn't want The Rock to knock that off perch. So maybe that is why they carried on with those plans, hoping that they would get the reaction that they did get. So even before that weekend, when we got hashtag, save Cody, which also wasn't correct, or we want Cody, there may have been people with important roles in WWE. Look, I'm going to go conspiracy theory here, because it's fun as a YouTube video. 1, that hoped for it, and 2, maybe under burner accounts, they even threw their 2 cents in too, to try and wind some people up and get some people talking about it. But I always, with wrestling, these things change all the time, right? Cards subject to change. And as I do sit here, like I say, in May, I think right now WWE is in a pretty good position. I'm massively intrigued to see what Damian Priest and Jey Uso do tomorrow. I think they have to bring it in order to justify them feeling like the main events of the big guys on Monday Night Raw, now that Cody has jumped across. I think that Cody and AJ Styles know they have to have a proper banger of a match. And if you do that, once again, it's this the magic of hindsight, the magic of retroactively looking at something. If they have a match that you really, really enjoy and you finally get to see these two go at it, you're probably going to be like, man, I'm so happy I got to see that. Isn't Cody wonderful? And look, Cody also started talking about heel turns recently, because now everyone is saying it. Who said it the other day? Someone said he's definitely a heel. Was it Kevin Nash or someone like that said, oh, I see a heel in Cody Rhodes? Maybe it was an Eric Bischoff. I think Dijak may have mentioned something too. It is not the time to turn Cody Rhodes heel. It's not the time in a year to turn Cody Rhodes heel. But I think if he wants to have super longevity in WWE, it will just happen naturally, right? It just does. I mean, even Steve Austin at one point in 2001, post WrestleMania 17, thought that he needed to do it. Now, he was totally wrong, but I bet maybe once again, if we went back to that moment, we'd be able to understand it a bit more based on crowd reactions or merch sales or the people he had to face. Because in, say, 18 months to 2 years, Cody Rhodes, much like Roman Reigns, is going to have faced everybody. So all of a sudden, if you do switch him, it becomes massively interesting because he can take on the other people the moment he's not allowed to face. So I don't mind the fact that Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman went to do that. I'm sure there was a selfish compartment to it as well, because there always is when it comes to wrestling, but I still think it helped Cody Rhodes, because again, I was at WrestleMania 40, and on that night too, he did feel like the biggest star in the world, and it also meant on night one, he got to have a match with The Rock, which again, could set things up for the future, and it's the same with Seth Rollins as well. Like, we meant to have the Seth Rollins CM Punk stuff, but because of all these changes, he was able to be in that main event too. He was also able to do that stuff on night two, main event night one, do that stuff on night two with Roman, which again could lead to a feud, and he too has just signed a brand new deal with WWE. Him and Drew McIntyre the same, apparently super huge bumper deals, and good for them, they deserve it. And I have to imagine now that Becky Lynch has come back and won the World Championship, she's going to be signing a big deal as well. So no more jumping ship for the time being, although actually, just didn't expect to talk about this, Ethan Page has apparently just left AEW by choice. It sounded like his contract came to an end, and that's a huge shame. Like, I know Ethan Page a little bit, like we've had a few chats over the years, and he is a super nice guy. Everyone that says that is 100% correct, but I also think that there was a lot more to do with Ethan Page. And I think whether he winds up back in TNA or he goes to WWE, or wherever he finds himself, if somebody actually gives him the platform to run with what he's got, I think he'll be a huge success. I don't think he's been able to show the amount of talent he does have, just because it's difficult, right? AEW and WWE the same, has a bunch of guys, and sometimes you fall between the cracks. And yeah, I think Ethan has way more to show, both as a face, as a heel. I'm glad he got to have that match with Kenny Omega, because I really can use that to say, excuse me, look what I am able to do. Especially because Kenny Omega had diverticulitis, and that's a different story for a different day. But they're both heroes. But yeah, all the best to him. He's a super good guy. He's a super good wrestler, and he gets it. He got the promo stuff down, and he gets the goofy stuff too, the stuff he's done in the past. So fingers crossed. But of course, now you're chomping at the bit to let me know what you thought about the whole Roman Reigns. Just take it as read for the sake of this conversation, right? Let's say that Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman did go to the powers that be, and they convinced them not to have Cody win at WrestleMania 39, meaning it probably was at the last minute, because there would have been a lot of thinking about this. Good idea, bad idea, and are you still happy that Cody Rhodes won it at WrestleMania 40, or do you think if he did win it at WrestleMania 39, there would actually be a better lineup of an opponent, or a bunch of people he could face, which actually would have made his title reign? I think his title reign is fine. I think it's way too soon to criticize it, but that is what the internet does do, so you can let me know. Is that a way to kind of circumvent that? We're never going to know. Also, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the bell ding ding to be part of the notification crew. There is a video on the screen, probably my backlash predictions, so make sure you click that so you can see how wrong I'm going to be. Otherwise, it is grillandmind.com/Simon. You can go somewhere get 10% off. I'm literally using this stuff out here in America. No need to flex. That was dumb. Patreon.com/Simon316. Simon316 on Instagram and Twitter. I am Simon J. Miller on the TikTok. Simon Miller on Cameo. Been doing a lot of them. It's got a lot of time in my hotel room because I'm touring America with the last match. I'm sure you know about that. Thank you to some of the patrons that did come. You made my day. It was a wonderful experience all around. And if you'd like to buy a t-shirt, go to Pro Wrestling Tees and search for my name or Samson Athletics. All of these links are in the description down there as well. But yes, it's lovely seeing you. I am definitely planning on getting back into a daily routine of content. I mean, the channel at the moment is a little bit dead, which does suck, but you know, sometimes life does go life. But you're still here for me. I appreciate that. Take care. See you soon.